Welcome to Innovation Cafe. I am your friendly neighborhood inventor, Gary Schuster, and today I want to talk with you about invention sessions. Now, inventing is something you can do on your own. I do it on my own all the time, but it's more fun with a friend or four. You need someone to bounce ideas off of sometimes. Sometimes the other people will have insights that you don't. So I've done a lot of invention sessions precisely because they can open doors that you don't think to open. So one time I was sitting with my brother, and he's a co-inventor on a lot of my patents, and we were just talking about how ugly QR codes are. They are. They're very ugly. So we decided, well, let's experiment with QR codes and see how we can disguise them. Now, the first thought I had, and I have a background in photography, was there are parts of the light spectrum that cameras, including cell phone cameras, can pick up that human eyes can't. And then, well, why don't we do it in that? So it'll look like a blank part of the page. It'll maybe say, point your camera here, and it would almost seem like magic. Well, that's one idea. They have filters on cameras. It turned out not to be quite as reliable as I had hoped. So what was the next idea? Well, we were talking and what would happen if we were to block part of the QR code? Well, it turns out that QR codes are wildly redundant. So as long as you're not encoding too much information, it appears multiple times. So you can actually block out part of it and put a design in there. So now it got us thinking. And so I wrote up a patent disclosure about, how to incorporate a QR code into a design. And we had a couple of design patent ideas. And then I thought, well, barcodes have been around for a while. QR codes have been around for a while. I bet you someone's done this. And so this was one of those times where it was worth doing a prior art search. And, like I advise you every time, if you're going to do a prior art search, you have to keep a list of everything relevant that you find, as long as a patent examiner might consider it relevant to issuance of a patent. So even if it's not prior art, if an examiner would want to look at it, you should include it in your information disclosure statement. So I did that. I'm writing these notes, and then I stopped writing notes because I realized we weren't getting this patent. Enough close stuff had been done that, we could have gotten maybe some very specific design patents, but it just wasn't going to work. So that was one invention session. Now, there are professional inventors out there, and you can be one. Humans are born able to do that. And I got certified with a company that does inventing as an outsourced service. And I got certified as an invention session facilitator. And that was, I got to admit, that was really fun. Because if you thought that, herding cats was not challenging enough, if you thought that squeezing Jell-O in your hand and not having it come out through your fingers is not quite a big enough challenge for you, try to get inventors to all row in the same direction at the same time. It's not easy. So part of maybe most of my job was to keep things moving along by bringing them back to the subject. Now, because there was a non-disclosure agreement, and I have a short that I did about those, unfortunately, almost every transaction in the world of patents seems to be covered by a non-disclosure agreement. I can't really talk about the specific invention sessions I was paid to run, but I can talk about one that showed up in the newspaper that I wasn't at. And this is something that happened at a very big innovation company that has an interest in nuclear fusion. So they hire, on a 5-day basis or whatever, a bunch of nuclear physicists. And these are really creative people, and they bring them to a room and say, all right, we're going to invent. And one of them says, well, we need some caffeine. Let me go, during the day, they didn't want coffee. I'm going to grab a Diet Coke. And they come back from the room and they said, you won't believe it. The Diet Coke wasn't in the fridge and the ice machine's broken. And then they start talking about ice machines. Now, remind you, these are nuclear physicists. They're supposed to be working on a way to do nuclear fusion in a reactor. Instead, with patent lawyers present and all, they start to talk about how to improve ice machines. And at the end of the day, they had a bunch of new patent applications for improved ice machines. So you can't always keep inventors on track. And sometimes if an invention session wants to slide to the side a little bit, let it. If someone's excited about something, they're going to be more creative about it. They're going to be more on top of it. They're going to come up with better and more expansive ideas. They're going to connect disparate ideas that they normally wouldn't connect. Because when you're excited about something, you do a better job. It's kind of why you should make sure you have a job that you like. Have you ever seen someone who hates their job do an amazing job? It's not common, right? You should like what you're doing. So they've slid over to a topic that they're excited about. Man, just do it. Come up with those inventions. And, eventually they get back to doing the nuclear fusion stuff. So now when I did the invention sessions, and without revealing the topic of it, we would get a request from, you can tell I'm a Bugs Bunny fan, okay? So it would be, I'm making up a company now, Acme. And they want to make better anvils for coyotes to drop on roadrunners. You see, I'm totally not disclosing anything. This is the problem with non-disclosure agreements, is people can't even teach lessons based on inventions that resulted in patents. But back to Acme. So I would say, they want to have an anvil that has an adjustable weight system to where you can change, the amount of force it exerts upon hitting an object. And so, they would throw in something like, well, we could add like a little bladder there that you could fill with water to add weight. We could have, a ring system where you can remove some pieces of the anvil in rings from the center. And then someone would say, thinking about anvils kind of reminds me about forging swords. What would be cool? If we came up with a better way to have an anvil be some way to forge swords. And I hated to do it because I love when people go off on things that are exciting to them. But I had to. So I told them, well, we have to really come up with the anvil improvements that the client wants. And that was frustrating for me. But you have to do it. If you're trying to invent for a specific purpose, it's hard but important to stay on track. So my experience in invention sessions has been that I end up with better dimensionalized patent disclosure. If I have one idea, someone else is going to have another idea, and we'll bounce back and forth. And, up to about 4 people, it gets better. Past about 4 people, it gets much, much worse. So how do you do an invention session? Well, if you want to set one up, it's important that you have someone designated to take notes. You can also, because we live in a magical world of voice to text, you can also have it recorded or videoed. There are legal issues potentially with that. Talk to your patent lawyer before doing it, but you should be fine. So you make some kind of recording of it. I had an invention session with a company I consult with, and man, that was how it went. There were 3 of us, and we just turned on a camera, and I think we have probably half a dozen patents and a bunch of applications that came out of that one session. So it's fantastic if you have some way to record it, but that's important. You also want to have food. Sounds silly, but if you're distracted because you're hungry, you're not going to be as creative. Also, inventors are very prone to ADHD. I have it. A lot of inventors have it. Probably the majority of patent holders have some form of ADHD. So, you want caffeine there, because caffeine is a way to self-medicate ADHD to keep you a little bit more on track without being such a heavy-handed medication that, you lose your ability to connect disparate ideas to come up with inventions. So you want food, you don't want too many people, you want someone recording ideas, and this is very important. You want to establish ground rules that there is no bad idea. I know you've heard this a lot of places, but it's true. There's no bad idea, because something that sounds like an insane idea can be modified by the next inventor. And the next inventor after that might modify their modification, and you might end up with something good. Those are invention sessions. Let me encourage you to do them. You don't even need to have a goal. Just sit down and say, we're going to talk about some cool stuff. Let's talk about how to make things better that we already like. I mean, you probably did it as a kid. In fact, I'm sure that all of you did it as a kid. You get out on the playground and you say, well, we're going to do this game, but wouldn't it be cool if we changed the rules this way and did that and had this different rule, and now all of a sudden you've invented your own game. So we know how to do these. We've done innovation sessions our entire lives. Just let it rip. Let it flow. And so with that tip, please live your best, most creative life. This is Gary Schuster, your friendly neighborhood inventor, and this has been Innovation Cafe. We'll catch you next time.